Good evening. Thank you. I am Tom Kaplan, and it is my great pleasure to serve as the president of the 92nd Street Y. I am delighted to welcome you all this evening for something that is truly very, very special, as we bring you two of our finest practitioners of tikkun olam, that is to say, those who repair the world. Each of our guests has chosen a life of engagement and dedication to their fellow men and women. Gayle King is the editor-at-large of O, the Oprah Magazine, which celebrated its 10th anniversary in May. She has been instrumental in guiding the editorial and creative vision of the magazine since its inception, and quite an inception it was. The magazine premiered as one of the most successful magazine launches ever. In its first full year, both Adweek and Advertising Age named it Startup of the Year, and Advertising Age named it Magazine of the Year. And it was no flash in the pan. The magazine has been nominated for National Magazine Awards every year and continues to be one of the 10 top-selling magazines on the newsstands in the United States. In addition to this success, Ms. King is a special correspondent for both The Oprah Winfrey Show and Good Morning America. And in September 2006, she began hosting a national radio program on XM satellite network. As a member of the board of directors of Oprah's Angel Network, Ms. King played a significant role in providing funds from nearly 150,000 donors to hundreds of organizations throughout the United States and in more than 30 countries around the world, improving access to education, protecting basic rights, and much, much more. Interviewing Ms. King tonight is a very special friend and benefactor of the 92nd Street Y. He's really one of the great people, a true leader of our community. Jonathan M. Tisch is co-chairman of the board of the Loews Corporation, chairman and CEO of its subsidiary, Loews Hotels, treasurer of the 2007 Super Bowl champions, the New York Giants, and has served as co-chair of the bid committee that is bringing the 2014 Super Bowl to the brand new Giants Stadium. Jonathan is the author of The Power of We, Succeeding Through Partnerships. He's also the author of Chocolates on the Pillow Aren't Enough, Reinventing the Consumer Experience. And most recently, he has authored Citizen You, Doing Your Part to Change the World. As a member of one of New York's most civic-minded families, one that has supported many of America's notable institutions, including our very own 92nd Street Y, Jonathan Tisch has devoted a lifetime to active citizenship. In addition to being a best-selling author, Mr. Tisch hosts the Emmy-nominated Beyond the Boardroom with Jonathan Tisch, airing on Bloomberg Television Worldwide and Plum TV. It's a great honor to welcome Jonathan back to our stage, where just a few weeks ago he co-chaired our annual gala that raised an extraordinary $2.7 million that goes to support the Y's own efforts at Tikkun Olam. Two pieces of housekeeping business. First, please write your questions on the cards that we have distributed. Ushers will be collecting them halfway through the program. And secondly, please join us immediately following the program in the adjacent art gallery, where Jonathan Tisch has graciously agreed to autograph copies of Citizen You. Ladies and gentlemen, please warmly welcome Jonathan Tisch and Gayle King. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi. People I know. Listen, I wish I would have known you had the Super Bowl hookup. I did not know Jonathan had the Super Bowl hookup.
Absolutely. 2014, the new Meadowlands Stadium. Are you available?
I will be available.
Okay,
Jonathan.
sounds good.
I will be available.
Sounds good. Gayle, welcome to the 92nd Street Y.
Thank you for having me.
It is wonderful that you are here tonight. As Tom mentioned, this is truly an incredible institution, and not only servicing the Upper East Side of Manhattan, but really one of the great landmarks in New York City, and I am so proud of my family's affiliation, and also very honored that you've agreed to join us tonight for a conversation and a discussion about what has made you one of the most recognizable people on the American landscape. So welcome.
Listen, when he was reading my bio, I was thinking, I want to meet Gayle King. But when Jonathan Tisch speaks, people listen.
And
so I'm delighted
when Gayle
to be
King
here.
speaks,
I'm delighted, thank you.
Gayle, it's interesting because you were born in this country, but you spent a lot of time in Turkey, and you grew up in Ankara.
Yeah.
What brought your family over to that part of the world?
I lived in Turkey, in Ankara, from 1st grade to 6th grade. And my dad was an electronic engineer for the government. And so I didn't think that my life was unusual. I figured that that's how everybody grew up. For me, it was not unusual to go on vacations in Europe, to speak Turkish, to speak the Turkish language, to have Turkish friends. You know, when you're a little kid, you don't realize that what you have right now is really a unique experience. I can remember really vividly going to Greece, to the Acropolis, and saying to my dad, you know, why do we have to sit and look at these rocks? Can't we just go back to the hotel and go swimming? Now, you know, I look at those pictures as a 4th grader, 6th grader and go, yes, I went to the Acropolis. You don't realize the experience that you shared, that I had.
Did you learn a lot as a young person being able to go on weekend trips to all these different wonderful locations?
I think I did. Yeah, I think I did, but I didn't know what I was learning. You know, you just figured, okay, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do.
And school brought you to the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
A double major in psychology and sociology.
Yeah.
Those have come in handy in your later career, I assume.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I intended to go to law school. I always thought I would be good in a courtroom. I could see myself. Or I was going to be a child psychologist because I've always liked listening to people's problems. I always have an opinion about something. I always like to offer advice. So I really thought I would be good with kids offering advice. That was my game plan. You know, that's what happens when you make plans. Things change.
It didn't work out that way.
No.
You graduated the same year that I graduated from Tufts, 1976, which I guess makes us the same age.
I'm 55. How old are you?
Significantly older, 56. Much older. But what's interesting is that we graduated at the same time in June of 1976.
Yeah.
And then you and I got a paycheck from the same employer. You were at WJZ in Baltimore, and I was at WBZ in Boston as a production assistant.
That's Westinghouse,
and we were both paid by Westinghouse Broadcasting in one of our first jobs.
Gosh, I had no idea you even had a TV background.
I started as a cinematographer producer in Boston for WBZ. And so we both worked for Westinghouse Broadcasting, but you started your career pretty early on going to be a reporter and being on air.
Yeah, I did. You know, when I was in college, I was working part-time at a camera store. I was an RA in college. I was a desk receptionist. I was always always somebody who liked working, always. And I used to work at this camera store very next to the TV station, WPOP was the name of CBS station. And a lot of muckety-mucks from the CBS affiliate would come in, and I never knew who anybody was. One of them was one of the highest muckety-mucks, and he said, have you ever thought about television? I went, no, I never have. He said, because you have a really nice voice. And I said, well, okay. He said, we have some openings at the station. And I said, well, what is it, and do I have to work weekends? Which goes to show you that if someone's offering you an opportunity, as you know, you don't say, what are the hours, I'll see if I'm available. And he was a little taken aback. He goes, well, as it turns out, nope, you don't have to work weekends. It's a Monday through Friday, the night shift. Would that be okay? I go, yeah, that'll be all right. And so I went in.
You can sleep late.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm still going to school. I was still an RA. I had lots of things to do, Jonathan.
Okay.
So, I mean, I went in that newsroom, and I was so fascinated by TV news. And from then on, I was hooked. You know, this was my junior year, and I was in my psychology course. And I knew I didn't want to go back and take journalism classes. So I, you know, ended up being a production assistant. And it's amazing what creative writing can do on a resume. It's not lying. It's just creative writing. And I was able to parlay that from college to getting a job at WJZ in Baltimore.
And in those days, as I remember being a cinematographer, it was film. And we were there right at the transition from film to videotape.
Yep.
And so that was an important moment. And the reporters had to change how they were doing things because film would hide a lot of sins, let's say.
You know what? I wasn't even a reporter. My job, you mentioned film, we had to get the A roll and the B roll. It was my job to label them. It was my job, if someone was talking about, for instance, President Obama, my job to pick the pictures, the slides that went in the back, to take the chyrons. The president is the only one in the United States who you never see chyroned on American TV. So if you're talking about the Mayor Bloomberg, it would be my job to type in the chyron for that. So it was a very entry-level position, production assistant / news writer. That's what I started doing.
And when was the first opportunity where someone said, Gayle, let's try you on air as a reporter?
You know, when I look back at that tape, it really is blackmail material. I look at that and I go, God, how in the world did I get a job? Because I go from the production assistant, I apply for a reporter training program in Washington. I get that, and then after a year of training, their whole deal is to train you to become a reporter. And I had a system about where I wanted to go. I wanted to be in a top 50 market because I thought I was worthy. I knew that there are 212 markets. No, actually it was top 30 market. There are 212 TV markets, and I sat there with the broadcast yearbook and the map of the United States. And I said, I don't want to go past the Mississippi River. So I applied in all these different stations, and my thing is get to know people's assistants. Because I'm telling you, the assistants know everything. And I would call on the phone, I would introduce myself, and I would say, look, I'm looking for a job, and I know you as the assistant knows everything that's going on in the newsroom, even before it's announced. So is it a best use of my time to send a tape? And if it's not, please let me know. And that's how I ended up getting a job. My first job was in Kansas City.
And then from Kansas City, you went to
Hartford.
To Hartford, right?
Yeah.
And then ended up in Washington.
Then I was there for 18 years. I was a dinosaur in Hartford, Connecticut. It's one of those things where, you know, you're anchoring the news for so long that people would say, you know, Gayle, you came to my school when I was in 3rd grade. This is my son. He's in 3rd grade. You go, oh, thanks. You know, I got married
We've just
there.
established that we're the same age, so now
yes, I know.
By inference,
Fess up.
right?
Yeah.
By inference, that's not so good for me either.
No, but Jonathan, don't you feel, you know, I'm 55, but honest to God, I feel 38.
Oh,
How
absolutely.
old do you feel? Maybe 39, maybe 39. I don't feel 55.
I think 56 is the new 12.
I know,
That's how good I feel.
No, but I remember when my mom turned 50 thinking, gosh, she's getting up there, she's getting old. And now that I'm past that, I'm thinking 55 is pretty
Look
good.
at everything that you're doing. You're focused on so many amazing things.
I am never
bored. But we
bored.
can't leave Baltimore because Baltimore is a major part of the story.
Yeah.
Because you met somebody in Baltimore who changed your life, and that would be Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What was the first encounter like? Where did you?
Well, I mean, this is something that's so unique to Oprah and really not surprising to who she is today. Because here we are, we're 21 and 22. We're now 55 and 56. She is considerably older by 11 months. And, you know, I am clearly low man on the totem pole. If you're intern / news writer, however they choose to call you, that is clearly an entry-level position. She is the news anchor. So in terms of newsroom hierarchy, she's here and I'm here. But one night there was a snowstorm, and you know, Oprah had her own place and was living close. I had a 45-minute commute. I was making $12,000. She was making $22,000. It's $23,000 at the time. And I was thinking, God, she's so rich. I would call my mom and say, my friend Oprah, she went to Casual Corner and she bought 2 sweaters. She didn't put it on layaway. You know, because I was still going into layaway. You remember layaway? I would go into layaway and make my little payments. I would say, God, Mom, she's so rich. So there was this big snowstorm, and Oprah, who didn't really know me, you know, she just knew we were young, black women, single, and she said, you know, the weather's so bad, why don't you spend the night at my house? And I go, well, you know, I don't really have any clothes. And she goes, well, I have clothes. We were both size 10 then. And I said, yeah, but I don't have any underwear. She goes, I have underwear, and it's clean. And so like, years later, when I told that story, people said, the night I wore Oprah's underwear, which is so stupid. And then she said,
Yet another National Enquirer headline.
Yes.
About Gayle and Oprah.
Yeah, there have been some doozies.
Right.
But she said, I draw the line at the toothbrush. We'll stop at the drugstore, get you a toothbrush. And I went to her house, and we ended up staying up all night long talking, like, do you think so-and-so is boinking? Do you like her? I don't like them. And I found that we were very like-minded in our philosophies, in our feelings about people that we worked with. not gossiping. I heard Oprah on TV once say, "I don't gossip," and I called her and said, "When did that start?" but we stayed up all night and we were talking, and we just found, we were friends ever since that night.
And the similarities of both being young African American women, who in those days
single.
In those days you were pioneers, and you started on the production side, and she was on air.
Yeah.
There was a shift in the industry at that point to broaden and become more diverse.
I know, but isn't it so interesting that you're a pioneer and you don't even know you're a pioneer? I mean, honestly, I never felt like I was a pioneer. I don't think she ever felt like she was a pioneer, but when I look back on those days, clearly it was, uncharted territory.
It's so interesting that you said you made $12,000 a year. While you were in Baltimore at Jay-Z, I was in Boston at BZ, and my first salary was $12,000 a year.
You are kidding.
That must have been the entry-level grid
Yes.
for kids that didn't know better.
Yes.
And
I was grateful for it, too.
Absolutely.
I could pay, my rent was $225 a month. I had a little coupon book for your car payment, and I felt grateful that I was making, I thought $12,000, that's double digits.
Absolutely, but you went on.
Really?
You
I
went
thought
on,
that
and
was
you've won 3 Emmys.
Yeah, I have.
That's exciting.
Just for talking. Yeah, for interviewing people. I've always been a kid that really liked people from the time I was a very early age. I'd go at slumber parties at people's houses, and they would say, your daughter's so polite, she's, very inquisitive. Some people say nosy, I like the word inquisitive. And, when I was anchoring the news in Connecticut, they changed the format so I could interview people. And I won my Emmys. I won my Emmys for interviewing.
That's wonderful. Well, to continue the similarities, I've been nominated for 5 Emmys.
Wow.
But I'm 0 for 5. You're 3 for 3, I'm 0 for 5. So.
Hello, Susan Lucci.
Absolutely.
Keep going, Jonathan.
Keep trying.
Going. Don't give up.
I'm trying, absolutely. Did you learn a lot from those early years? When you now look back, and when I travel around and like you and speak at college campuses, and kids today are a bit frustrated because of the tough employment situation with 10% unemployment. They're saying, I can't get that job that I have now spent 4 years, 6 years, 8 years trying to get educated for. And I tell them, take a job, any job, because you learn from every experience. So you started with the job of getting the chairs ready and getting the makeup ready. And when you look at today's life and you look at today's responsibilities, can you point to some things that you learned early on?
Well, I think people sometimes, I hate sounding like the old person in the room, back in the day, but I do think that people think that you don't have to work as hard. When I was growing up, I was willing to do anything. I was willing to come in on weekends, I was willing to work nights, just to learn to be a reporter. And I think no matter where you work, you always find somebody who is willing to help you. And I think if you can latch onto somebody who is willing to help you, it will take you very far. There are some people who you can tell don't want to be bothered and think of you as a nuisance, but there's always somebody that's willing to share what they've learned. And it's true, nobody gets where they are. I don't care who you are, who you know, what you've done. Nobody gets to a position of success without help from somebody. And so I don't forget those days. I don't forget the people who were kind to me and helped me. And I don't forget, that sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do just to learn. You're
now a mentor to so many young women, so many young men around the country and around the world. Did you have mentors? Were there people that you can remember that they were so helpful to you, maybe besides your parents?
Ralph Begleiter, who was a radio reporter, Pam Coulter, J.C. Hayward, who is an anchor today in Washington, D.C., were people who were very kind to me, who took the time. And you don't forget people like that. You don't forget them.
And then, obviously, much has been written about your career, about Oprah's career, but you stayed together as friends. Those early years of bonding have, obviously, here we are some 35 years later.
Yeah.
Was it always that case from that first sleepover date?
Yeah, and always, I think because, and it's funny, we have never lived in the same city. But, I talk to her every single day, so it seems like we're in the same city. But we have never lived in the same city, and people think, well, it must be hard, to see Oprah's success. Do you ever feel lesser than? And I never ever feel that way. I am so happy for her success, and I'm so happy with what I do. So that if you I never feel lesser than or less deserving. And I think the trick is being happy with who you are and what you do. And that's never changed for me. And we cheer each other on.
Cut to the present day. This is a thick magazine.
Happy birthday to us.
This is a really thick magazine.
Yeah. I'm very proud of that magazine.
This is a thick magazine in an era where a lot of magazines are not even here anymore.
Yeah, I know.
They've shrunk. They've gotten smaller. And this is
knock on wood.
This is the 10th anniversary issue.
Yeah.
It came out.
Are you a subscriber, Mr. Tisch?
I was looking for a card in here
what
so that I could
learned?
send in my subscription. I am living my best life. Don't worry. I promise you.
I don't doubt it.
And some people have said that I do look like Dr. Phil. So with the same hairline, and now the mustache is gone, we may even look more alike.
I heard, though, Jonathan, he's growing his mustache back.
He is?
Like it. Yeah.
I think you need to chronicle the evolution of the new
I
mustache.
heard he didn't like it. Robin didn't like it, so it's coming back.
So here we have a page of all the covers from 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable. It's truly remarkable. When you started this 10 years ago, and probably the idea started 11 years ago, and you went to Hearst, who's your partner in the venture, did you ever think that 10 years after the first issue, this is what it would be?
Well, this is the thing. Hearst came to Oprah. Oprah had been pitched by many people. She had gotten pitches from 8 different people over the years, 8 different corporations about doing a magazine. And Ellen Levine and Kathy Black came and gave her the presentation of life. And she called me on the phone and said, I have been blown away by this Hearst presentation. I think I'm going to do it. And they sold her by saying, you love books. Everybody knows Oprah's a voracious reader. I'm a TV junkie. She loves books. And they said, think of the magazine as a written word that you can savor every month. And that's the line that got to her. So she said, after, some back and forth, and she was talking to them, they said, we really need somebody in New York who understands your voice and your vision. And so she called me up and said, I was at this meeting, and they said, we need somebody. Can you recommend somebody? She said they suggested you, and I told them you would never leave TV. And I said, I would never do magazines for I would never do that, leave TV, because I'm such a TV baby. And I was just about, in 2 days, getting ready to sign a new contract with Channel 3. I'd been there 18 years. I was just about to re-sign another contract, because I was very happy. I had 2 children. I was divorced, but I was really okay, doing very well, feeling very satisfied with my position. And I woke up the next morning and I thought, let me think about that for a second. You could learn something new. It would be something different. So I called her up and I said, well, I don't know. What do you think? She goes, well, I told them that there's no way you do it, but why don't you think about it? And I go, well, maybe I'll just tool up there and see what it is. And I went and met with Ellen Levine and Kathy Black, and they were telling me about it, and I went, oh, okay. And I said, but I don't know anything about magazines. And neither does Oprah. We called ourselves Jose Feliciano and Stevie Wonder. I was Stevie, sort of like the blindly. We were so uneducated about magazines that when we were sitting in a meeting and they said TOC, we're trying to think, TOC, what is that?
What is TOC?
Table of Contents. Table of Contents.
How many people knew that TOC was Table of Contents?
They did.
Right.
Yeah. So I went and I thought, okay, Oprah goes, you may not know magazines, but you do know me and you know a good story. And that part I knew was true. And the more I started talking, I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I went into it saying, we've had some editor changes in the past 10 years, and now we have knockout Susan Casey, who's going to take us to the next level. She's a bad mamma jamma. But so we've had some twists and some turns. But when we first started, I said, I believe that it was ours to lose. Because Oprah has such a huge following and that people that so respect, admire, and trust her. But Jonathan, if you're not giving a good product, it doesn't matter. People will not keep coming back month after month after month. So far, knock on wood, so good.
I've interviewed Kathy Black for my TV show.
Oh, okay.
And she tells, which is interesting, she tells exactly the same story.
Well, did you think I was making it up?
But from her perspective, about how everybody was coming after Oprah.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted Oprah to do a magazine.
Yep.
And that she went there with Ellen Levine. And they said, Kathy Black says, we were really good that day. I must say that it was a great presentation.
No, I heard that
and what Hearst and Kathy, as the boss, they've become really good at finding the right partners. And you guys have become an incredible partnership to now put this out for 10 years. Now, your role is to be editor at large. And translated, that means that you're interference. You're there, you've got all the people that are doing the great editing and the writing.
Well, I mean, I really do. I can look at something and say, I think that'll work for Oprah, or it won't work for Oprah, or, you know, look at different layouts. I mean, it's sort of, you know, editor at large means different things at different magazines. My role is very, very specific at that magazine.
And what are some of the other responsibilities on a daily basis? What would you find yourself doing?
Well, I mean, my job is so crazy because I start with radio every day from 9 to 11.
We'll get to that.
9 to 11 East Coast time, the Gayle King Show.
Right.
But I mean, today, you know, the way magazines work, we're already working 3 months out. So we're sitting in a meeting today, already going over an issue that we're working on that I can't share with you at this particular time.
Oh, come on, nobody's listening.
It might have something to do with power.
Okay.
So we're in a meeting and we're talking about different people who should be included and what it should look like. I mean, so, you know, with just about every phase of the magazine, I'm involved. But could I be editor-in-chief? I could never be editor-in-chief of the magazine. And I know that. I ain't trying to get that job.
Is the O brand, the Oprah Magazine brand, is that Oprah Winfrey personified?
Oh, that's a good question. Because, you know, it's so interesting, this term brand really just popped up within the last 4 years, maybe. And she has been so resistant to, I'm not a brand, I'm a person, I'm not a brand. But the truth of the matter is, you know, as she spreads into different things, the O brand does have a certain recognition. It does have a certain expectation. You know, you do think quality, you do think integrity, you do think smart, all of the things of which Oprah is herself.
Are there issues that might be off limits in a magazine like O? Are there women's issues that you might be a little hesitant to touch? I mean, you cover a lot of different things,
yeah.
but as we all work, those of us that have a brand, we work really hard to protect the brand.
Yeah, we do too.
And so
we do too. We are not willy-nilly with the brand. I know I'm so conflicted about brand because I know the brand is a person, you know, but there are very few things that are off limits. We like whatever. We like sex, we like food, we like men, we like politics. I mean, there are very few things that are off limits.
Is there a Gayle King brand?
What's the Gayle King brand? I definitely don't think of myself as a brand.
But you're becoming very recognizable, not only for your work at Oprah, because of now the Sirius satellite radio show. You're going to have your own TV show. You're going to go back on TV on the Oprah Winfrey Network. Yeah,
we're going to take the radio show and figure out a way to put it on TV. I have a lot of fun with that radio show. I don't know. I can't think of a Gayle King brand. What should my brand be, Mr. Tisch? You're very good at branding.
I think it's a lot of
Speaking to the microphone.
It's a lot of what you talked about. It's discipline, it's integrity, and so many people say that you are one of the nicest people that they know. And so that's what you stand for, and that clearly comes through in a conversation like this or on radio, and now you'll be back on TV.
Maybe I should give some thought to the branding thing. I don't know.
I
don't have a brand at this particular time. It's just me, myself, and I.
Well, you stand for a lot. In the June issue, which is after the 10th anniversary issue,
which is after May, yes.
Right after May.
Yeah.
The headline reads, "We don't mean dropping everything and lighting out for Everest, but rather something simpler, taking your curiosity out for a romp."
Yes.
Is that
That's our adventure issue.
Right.
Yes.
So are you trying to get the reader out of their comfort zone and do something a little different?
Well, you know, we always think it's good to step out of the box a little bit. We always think that, you know, but, you know, a comfort zone is a comfort zone for a reason. I feel real good in there. Like, my comfort zone is yellow. My favorite color is yellow. I like all things yellow. But there's nothing wrong with taking a step out of your comfort zone. I believe in taking a risk. I don't believe in taking foolish risk. And I think if you don't change it up, if you don't try different things, then you become very stale and you become very boring.
Now, with the 10th anniversary, you had this big weekend at Radio City. And
there's a lot of moving parts, too.
I was going to ask you about that. It was an extension. In essence, it was a brand extension. You were celebrating the 10th anniversary of the magazine, and you had a lot of the very recognizable contributors, Nate and Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz. They were all part of it. Why did you pick New York City?
Why did we pick New York City? Because we're here. We decided, we have done some Live Your Best Life, we call them Live Your Best Life weekends. And we've been to Atlanta, Detroit, Boston, Los Angeles, Kansas City, for instance. But, for the 10th anniversary, there was no question about where we were going to be. We wanted very much to be in New York City.
And what was it like to see all of these people at Radio City and at Javits? I saw you, I think, on the Today Show.
Yeah.
Broadcasting from Radio City.
Yeah,
in this
I did.
Cavernous hall.
Yes.
That was about to be filled up with people that were so interested in learning more about how they can improve their lives.
And the thing is, they had come from all over. I met 9 women from Australia that were not related guys. They just came on their own. The youngest person was 19, who was taking a train ride for the very first time. The oldest person was 86, turning 87. I met somebody from Singapore. I met somebody, and of course, Maine, Vermont. I met somebody from Maine. I said, do they have black people there? And she goes, yes, they do. And I go, how many? And she said, 4. She goes, I never really thought about it. I go, when you go home, look, count the black people for me. But, so they were really all over the country, all over the world, which I think speaks to what Oprah represents to people. Her show at Radio City Music Hall on Saturday night, just picture this for a second, over close to 6,000 people, Radio City Music Hall, to see Oprah on stage. Most of them had no idea what they were going to see. She doesn't sing, she doesn't dance. And she talked for over an hour and a half, and in that presentation, she's telling her life story, she's talking about life lessons, she's talking about the magazine, how it went from here to here, for an hour and a half, walking back and forth in killer shoes, with no water, just walking back and forth, and people tell me later that they were mesmerized, that they were really enthralled in what she was saying. They wanted to come to hear the message of her. So when I saw the turnout of people that came for the 10th anniversary, it was a very humbling and gratifying thing. And I have many people that say, the magazine has changed my life, the TV show has changed my life. You have no idea what the magazine means to me, what the TV show means to me. And it's a very, it comes, Jonathan, though, with a big responsibility, and we know that. But it's a very humbling and gratifying thing to see.
So when you're at Radio City and you see your best friend up on stage and people are so enthralled with her words, and you've been there for the major part of her career and to help create the brand, do you feel really good about that you are really, as you said, helping to change people's lives?
I feel really proud. I do. I feel really proud that people love and respect her so. Sometimes, I'm certainly not her mother, but I say to her, I feel about you the way I feel about my favorite daughter, Kirby, who's 24, and my favorite son, Will, who's 23, that when somebody you love so much does something great, you just feel this great sense of pride. That's how I feel about her. And it sort of snuck up on me because, when Oprah was in Baltimore, she was a local news anchor, and then she got the job in Chicago, and was going up against Phil Donahue, and people said, he can't be beat. When she went there, they said, look, if you would just make us a number 3, we'd be happy. But I knew that, I didn't know she would go to number 1 so quickly, but I did believe that she would be successful. So, when her fame started coming, I'd be at a grocery store and see her face on a tabloid or something, and that was always sort of surprising. And the first time she was on Larry King, I said, so are you the first hour or the second hour? The first half hour or second half hour? She goes, I'm the whole hour. I go, he only does that for big people. When I went, she's an incredible speaker. She was speaking in Cleveland or St. Louis or something, and we pulled up, and there were these cops, like a line of cops here and a line of cops there, and, there were sirens going. I go, who is coming? And she goes, me. I go, and I'd never been with her to speak before. I go, this is what happens when you go to speak? What are you talking about? So I've seen it, I've seen it very gradually. I see her in a very different light. I realize the effect and the impact she has on people, and I just feel proud. I feel very proud.
I actually had never met Oprah before, and then my wife and I were honored to be at the Costume Institute.
That would be Lizzie.
Lizzie, who is here tonight.
Lizzie, who's here. Can I just tell about grandmother Bernice? I am so flattered and so, talk about being honored. Lizzie's grandmother, whose age shall remain, I will not say, but Lizzie's grandmother came with 11 of her posse from the nursing home to this presentation tonight.
Well,
so thank you, Grandma Bernice.
It's an apartment building. And she's here with 11 of her
posse.
Her buds.
11 of her homies. I thought that's
her
so
BFFs
nice.
are here.
So,
did you meet? Thank you for coming.
No, thank you, Grandma Bernice.
So
you met her at the
I
at the
met
Met
her.
Ball.
I met Oprah at the Met
Yeah.
on the receiving line.
Yeah.
And it was a long line, and there are a lot of bold names that attend that event, as you know.
Yeah.
And yet,
that was my first Met Ball. You've probably been before, right?
We go because my wife is head of the Costume Institute. The Friends of the Costume Institute. Yes.
That was my first one.
The receiving line takes a while.
Yes.
But she was such an ambassador
Yeah.
for her role as chair of the event.
Yeah.
And I watched her because I like being in the hotel business. I like understanding
yeah, I'll bet
people.
You do watch people.
And I watched her with the people before and some of the people after. And she looked everybody in the eye.
Yeah.
And she had a conversation with them in the short time span that she was allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so impressed that she made this effort to connect with everybody, that many people had written a big check to benefit the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd met her.
That's what I say. She doesn't disappoint. She doesn't.
Absolutely. So when we're sitting here 10 years from tonight,
Yeah.
and we're doing this, and we're going to be 10 years older, what would you like this magazine to be 10 years from now?
Well, it's funny. Oprah and I were just talking about this last night about, our 10-year anniversary and what in the next 10 years. I don't know. She said, I know one thing. I don't want to be in the cover 10 years from now. I don't want to be 66 years old on the cover of a magazine. But, I just think that, as long as we can resonate with women and connect with women and inspire women, I have no deadline on when this magazine will end. Unlike the TV show, which we know is ending next year, I have no deadline about the magazine.
And how are you guys dealing with the bifurcation or the new way of information being delivered? Obviously, magazines are many people feel, not yours, are dying a slow death because of
I know,
technology.
The internet, yes.
So what are you guys doing about digital?
Well, I mean, that's definitely something that
communications?
we're looking at. There's no question about that. But my son, who's 23, said, I really feel sorry for you in magazines because nobody reads magazines. Everybody goes on the internet. Well, he's 23.
Right.
I would like to think that, our reader still likes the feel of the magazine, the touch of the magazine. I certainly do. I still love how it feels. And to be able to flip through the pages or flag the pages or go back and look at it, and maybe I'm just the old fogey in the room, but I can't imagine that reading on a computer will be the only way that I will read. But that said, we are still very cognizant of it and know that we have got to figure out to have a significant online presence too.
But certainly you've got a partner in Hearst that is very much thinking about the same issues
they are
with all of their products. Now you have the radio show. I love the description that comes from your PR folks of how you do the show or the adjectives that describe the show.
What are they?
Your bio says that the show is that you are fearless, provocative, opinionated, informative, funny, we have been able to see that, unpredictable, entertaining, and fundamentally civil and respectful.
That's so nice. Who said that? That is so. But I really do feel those things.
But that's my question
is that
that
feel those things.
That we are living in a moment where there's not a lot of civility and respect with the rhetoric that we're hearing, whether you are lean left, whether you lean right. That's not the norm, but it's something that you're trying to achieve on your radio show.
For sure. I mean, and this is the thing. I think that, the whole age of reality TV, where people are really encouraged to just show their worst side. I was watching a show, and I watched some of them, but where somebody just took some water and threw it in somebody's face because they had had a disagreement about something. The fact that the President of the United States can be in the middle of the joint address to Congress and somebody can yell out, "You lie," is just so shocking to me that we can treat people that way. So I really am on a big crusade about civility. I really do believe that you can agree without being disagreeable and nasty to each other. I do feel strongly about that.
Have you had guests where at times you have to restrain yourself and you sort of would like to jump up and throttle them and say...
Well, I never want to throttle them, but I do want to say, I just don't understand your way of thinking. And maybe you can help me understand why you feel the way you do. And I'm really serious about that. I interviewed a couple of Tea Party people. And I was like, yowza. But I just wanted to know how you think the way you think and why you do what you do. But that really is the only way you'll learn, is to hear how people's minds are working. And I think we can do that, Jonathan, without, being nasty to each other.
And do you love the opportunity to present diverse views, diverse opinions? Do you sprinkle your show with guests that represent all kinds of...
Yeah, I think it's good to have, otherwise, the unpredictable part is really true. I like talking about day-to-day things. I'm a news junkie. I get up, I read the newspapers, I turn on the TV, I'm watching, Morning Joe, Good Morning America, The Today Show, CNN, so I have a pretty good idea before I go into work, before I go on the air, what I'm going to be talking about. My big story now is that Natalie Holloway story. I am sick about that story. That kid, because I believe that he was guilty from the very beginning, and now that 5 years later, he's apparently killed somebody else. So I was talking about that. Or, I went into the bathroom, we tape at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and a guy came out, and I went in, and it was, no disrespect, a mess. I wanted to call him back and say, didn't your mother train you? So I went on the air and I said, could somebody tell me when men go to the bathroom why there's just splatter all over the place? And people called. A guy called and said, well, Gayle, I was raised in a house with 3 daughters, with 3 sisters, and sometimes, it's pushback, he said. But it turned into a whole funny conversation. That wasn't something I planned to talk about that day. But I will just see things in life or see things during the course of the day that attract my attention.
And the ability to bring people together to talk about these.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of radio. I love when I do radio, just because you can sit there and you don't have to have the makeup on, and you look good all the time. But you don't.
No, I don't. It takes 2 hours to look this cute, and it takes a team. No, but there is something to be said about. When I first went on radio, the producer said to me, "You're really going to like radio." And I don't know, because I love TV. And she goes, "The intimacy of radio," and it's true. It's true. You're a voice in somebody's ear, and they call, and they're a voice in your ear. It's a very intimate medium, and I like that.
I did Joan Hamburg yesterday to talk about the new book, and I've been on that show before.
I've been on her show too.
And I just love you can just sit there relaxed.
Yes.
And TV,
she's got a beautiful voice.
She does,
yeah.
Indeed. And now you're about to go back into TV. Mm-hmm. Oprah's show is ending, the syndicated show. She's starting her own network. You're very involved in the creation of what's going to be called the Oprah Winfrey Network.
OWN.
OWN.
Yeah.
And you're doing it with the folks from Discovery.
Discovery, yeah.
So what's it like to start a network?
Scary as hell. No, it is no joke. It is more than a notion. Because the programming is 24/7. And to come up with quality programming 24/7 is really, it's a challenge. But I always believe that there's room on TV for something good. I always believe that. And I believe with the team that she has put together in conjunction with the Discovery Network, it will be good. Is it going to be perfection? Are there going to be some stumbles? No question about it. But ultimately, the bar is set very high.
And what will the Gayle King show look like?
We are just trying, this is what we're really struggling with, trying to do a radio show and bring it to TV, because it will also be live. And so how do you make that visually interesting? And
so it'll be different than maybe Imus on Fox, or where the camera is just on you. And
well, that's the thing. That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out. Mm-hmm. And they said, but look at Larry King. He started on radio. I didn't know that. Did you know that?
I did know that. He started in Miami on radio.
I heard that. Mm-hmm. I was meeting with a new producer last week. He goes, Larry King started on radio. Really? And really, his TV show is really his radio show on TV. Well, I'd like to think that we can figure out a way to make it visually interesting. But, somebody said to me, if you had good conversation, you don't have to be so hung up on it being visually interesting. But we live in a world where people want stimulation, they want pretty, they want lights, camera, action. So we have to figure something out.
So you'll be working in both mediums.
Yeah.
You'll be continuing the
radio show. But I'm doing it at the same time, so it's not like I'm going to have to go shoot something else. We will just take the radio show, and while I'm on the radio, figure out a way to tape it. We're trying to incorporate the technology of it, so when callers call, you can put them on the screen immediately with this thing called Facebook and Twitter and Skype, that we can figure out a way to do that. So, we have some ideas kicking around, so we'll see.
Do you tweet?
I have a tweet, and I've done it a couple of times, but this is the thing. I got the tweet, or however you call it, Twitter, whatever you call it. I actually know how to do it, but when I go to do it, I can't think of anything that's interesting to say. I'm now going
You
to the
didn't tweet
here.
that you're going to be at the 92nd Street Y tonight?
I'm
with,
tweeting when I'm leaving.
Right, with a couple hundred of your closest
I
friends?
wanted to see how you do before I decide what I'm going to say about you, Mr. Tisch.
That's a lot of pressure.
You're going to get a good tweet.
Okay.
But I have it, and I actually know how to make it, how to work it. I'm technically challenged, but it's all set up for me on my BlackBerry, so I get how to do it. But every time I go to tweet something, it just sounds so silly. It does. I've tweeted a couple of things that I thought were really interesting. I was at the Sting and Trudy and Elton John and Lady Gaga, who I love. Wasn't she great at the Met Ball that night?
She was amazing.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
So that night, they have a charity, the Rainforest Foundation, and they surprised everybody with Bruce Springsteen. I mean, can you imagine? You're sitting there in the audience. You already have Elton John, Lady Gaga, Sting, and
Right.
Trudy. It's a combination of Sting and Trudy is Ting.
Right.
So they've already performed, and Sting comes out and he says, 2 days ago, I wrote a letter to a friend of mine, and I said, I really need your help. I really want something that's going to knock the pants off of people. I know it's probably a bad time, but if you could just come and sing a couple songs, and we're all sitting there going, better be somebody good with this build-up. And then all of a sudden, in the back, you hear Dancing in the Dark, and Bruce Springsteen walks out looking like Bruce friggin' Springsteen. And I tweeted that to say, oh my God. Bruce Springsteen. I like him. I just think he's cool.
I think that's a very good tweet. And
I thought that was a good tweet.
I will feel honored if you put me in the same... How many words are you allowed? 22 words or something like that?
Yes. I think it's like 60 characters
Okay,
or something.
Tisch and Springsteen.
Okay.
Sounds like a new deli on the Lower East Side.
And what do they serve?
Gefilte fish.
Tisch and Springsteen, that's good.
One of your closest friends is a very dear friend of mine. That's Cory Booker.
Oh,
and
I love
Cory
him. Yeah.
was very kind to write the foreword to my new book.
Yes, I know.
And you've been quoted as saying, if you listen to Cory Booker for 15 minutes, you'll be hooked.
Yes.
But then you go on to say, now he can do it in 5 minutes.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
What do you find
you know
so...
that too.
Oh, of course I know
You know
that.
that too.
But what do you... How are we lucky to have Cory Booker in our lives? Not only as friends, but,
Yes.
but as people who live in the communities that he is trying to change.
Well, because he's one of those people that is going to make a difference. He's already making a difference in Newark.
Thank you.
Yes.
Questions from the audience.
He's already making a difference in the city of Newark. And I met him after the first campaign. When he lost the first campaign, I started, watching him. And after that first campaign, I was so disappointed when he lost. And then somebody called me at the magazine and said, maybe you guys should do something with Cory Booker. Would you like to meet him? Do you know who he is? I go, God, I would love to meet him. And I went to lunch with him, and meeting Cory Booker is like meeting an old friend. He started telling me about his life, how he got started. I became hooked. And then I had my first and probably my last political fundraiser for Cory Booker, because he really is one of those real deal people. The thing about him is he's not one way in front of the public, hi, good to see you, good to see you. And then, behind closed doors, he's something very different. He so passionately cares about changing the world, changing Newark in particular. And then I predict, the rest, wherever he decides to go, I want to be there cheering him on. But he so passionately cares. And I know that he will make a difference in the city of Newark, and I believe in the country ultimately one day.
So clearly this is not his last job.
I don't think so.
Yeah, the man has tremendous potential.
Yes.
Now, you're also friendly with the occupants of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. and you talk about people who want to make a difference and change the world. One of the reasons when I've been interviewed about the book, one of the questions is, why'd you write it now? And, and I answered that question by saying, because of people like the president and the first lady, and people like Mike Bloomberg, our mayor here in New York, who want to use their jobs to do good things and help people and give them the tools to change their own lives and change their neighborhoods.
Yeah, that it's not a bunch of photo ops for them. It is not a bunch of photo ops. These are people that genuinely care and want to do something.
And as Tom mentioned in your introduction, this is something that you've embraced in your life and that you are in the community all the time. Where did you get that inspiration? Was this something that came from your parents? Did you see it early on?
I don't know. I think I've just always been a kid who, when I said about being a child psychologist, wanting to hear people's problems, I have very clear memories in elementary school sitting around with kids, listening to their problems. and wanting to figure out a way to help or at least offer some kind of advice. I don't know where that came from. I really don't. I mean, and now I was at this screening last night. There's a great documentary called Waiting for Superman about education. And you look at this documentary and you just think, gosh, we have to change this. I went with favorite daughter, Kirby, and I said, Auntie O should do something about this. She could really make a difference. And I know that, that's going to be a very important documentary for people to see. Education in this country is in trouble for a lot of inner city kids. And it's, yeah, it is. It's in trouble. But I see that changing, Jonathan. I see that Cory Booker is also another person who's making a difference on that front.
Do you have a lot of friends that are in corporate America, that work in the private sector? Do you see them becoming more engaged? Do you see them having a sense that there's so many challenges out there that they need to do more than they're already doing?
Yeah, but I do see that, but I also know you can't get discouraged. I mean, if you started thinking, oh, the problems are so vast, there's nothing we could do, you would never get out of bed. I mean, I have such an eclectic life and know so many different kinds of people. That's what I like about my life. I know so many different kinds of people who are doing so many different kinds of things that it's just, it's fun to move around in all different kind of communities, and everybody's feeling the same thing. I'm one of these people who believe that people are inherently good. And I now live in New York, and I had a dog who passed away in January, but before, you have to get out and walk the dog. And one day Spencer had to go, it was 3 a.m. I live in a high-rise, so I'm going downstairs and I'm walking the dog. And when I came back, the doorman was standing in the window. And I go, what are you doing? And he goes, I was watching you. This is very stupid to do. He goes, it's 3 a.m., you're in New York City. And I said, but people are inherently good. He goes, not at 3 a.m. in New York City. I go, but Spencer had to go. Right. Spencer had to go. I didn't go far from the building. I'm not crazy, but it was a busy street, and I was very, very well lighted, lots of traffic. He goes, no. If you're going to do that, at least put on a baseball cap or a big coat or something. That's just crazy to do. But I didn't think that I was in danger. I think I live in a fairly safe place, and I knew that it was a crisis situation at the moment. But he's right. He's right. That's probably a very silly thing to do. But I was thinking about Spencer.
Well,
do you have a dog?
We do have a dog.
Well, then you understand.
Minnie.
And you do?
I have walked Minnie many times at 3 o'clock in the morning. Absolutely. You've mentioned your two kids, Will and Kirby. One went to Duke and one went to Stanford. And your daughter now is getting her doctorate in public health.
Yeah, she just got her master's in Columbia. Her master's 2 weeks ago. She's looking for a job.
Okay.
Just putting it out there, you never know. She's looking for a job.
Right. But as a single mom, it's been noted that you were an amazing single mom, that you really understood the needs of your children, and that you were able to get that balance that so many people are looking for, being a mother, but also having a career. Did you ever find your worlds colliding? Were there moments where you said, I can't do it all?
Well, I got divorced when Kirby and Will were 5 and 6, and I was very worried because all the research used to show that divorced kids are all screwed up, they have all these problems, blah, 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 blah. And I was really worried about that for them. When I got married, I really got married, till death do us part. I took my vows very, very seriously. I think my husband had other ideas. So I took my vows very seriously. And when I was divorced, I made a vow that I didn't want screwed up kids. It was very painful to me that, every weekend they would go to him, and just because I wanted a nuclear family. I was raised in a nuclear family, and that's what I wanted. But I realized very early that as long as kids are surrounded by love and feel secure, and they're not caught in the you know what he did to me, blah, 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 blah. As long as you don't keep them in that, and I think that's a mistake many women make. They're so mad at him, the kids are sacrificed in the middle. And I was determined I wasn't going to be one of those people. So I tried to make all of the important things. I did make a point, but Will at one point was playing Little League. Little League baseball just bored the poop out of me. I would be sitting in the stands with women going, God, please, somebody win this game. And when it would go into overtime innings, and I go, God. And they're sitting there, aren't you rooting for the team? I go, really, I'm just rooting for somebody to win. I mean, So I tried to be at all of the important things. That was important to me. But, sometimes when you're a working mom, a lot of times, you're going to miss some things. And I decided I wasn't going to beat myself up about that. As long as I could make the important things, that's what was important to me.
And now that your kids are in their mid-20s and they're moving on a little bit and they have their own lives, how's that transition been? And I know you're still very close to them.
Oh, yeah. I could eat them up, even today. I mean, there's nothing more fun to me than hanging out with the two of them. And even their friends comment, they said, gosh, when we go to your house, and they each have their own apartment. We're not roommates. None of us want to be roommates. But we all have family pictures around. And Kirby says, a lot of my friends don't even talk to their parents. I can't even, I go, really? Or just the way that kids talk to their parents these days. But I don't think I'm so extraordinary in terms of parenting. I know most parents really love their children. And, Oprah says, you're one of the best mothers I've seen. I go, Oprah, really? A lot of parents are engaged. A lot of parents are engaged in their children's lives. A lot of parents love their kids. I don't think that what I do is so extraordinary. I think you surround kids with a lot of love. I wasn't the kind of parent that I'm your friend. I had to let them know sometimes that let's just pretend that you're 12 and I'm 40, whatever I was at the time, and I know a little bit more than you. Let's just play that game. Or I would say, I'm making a mommy decision. Go ahead and give me your opinion. I'm making a mommy decision, and the answer is. And I think kids want structure. They really do. They want to have some boundaries. And I was I don't think that I was overly strict, but I definitely had some rules in my house.
Now, Gayle, your life has become somewhat of an open book, and People Magazine has a story on you.
I hate this article.
This article?
I was talking about this today. Honest to God, I was saying to Lucy and Susan today,
right,
in a meeting, that all I can think of is going to be gone in 7 days. Just let it be gone in 7 days.
Well, I won't dwell on it.
I'm not discussing it, Jonathan.
No. The only point I'm dwelling on is that you do talk about how your life has been so out in the open.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
Yes. I am. I'm very comfortable with that. But I don't like being characterized. There's a line about when she's not on the prowl, because I did mention that I like younger men, and I do. But I don't like being characterized. I think that's a good thing. But the line that says when she's not on the prowl, then she's working or something, like I'm out here trying to find, some young guy. That's just absolutely not true. I'm not Samantha of Sex and the City. And so I resented the characterization, because the article was supposed to be about the magazine, my radio show, and I don't know. I'll be glad when it's off the stands. Thank you for bringing it up. Your tweet just took a turn.
The same people who gave me those wonderful adjectives about you also gave me a link to People Magazine. So it wasn't my fault.
No, I know.
We've got many of your fans in the audience. Let's ask a few questions that they thought about during the last hour or so. Mm-hmm. How do you stay motivated and encouraged when things are not going as you had hoped?
Because I just think that if the minute you don't become encouraged about something, then you're in big, big trouble. It's no joke when I say that my favorite color is yellow, that I really am one of these people that sees life and sees most things as a glass half full. I'm not a half-empty person. It takes a lot to really get me upset or get me mad about something. If I lose my temper, it's something that's really very serious. I'm not a screamer or a hollerer about, things that I think are insignificant. And I try to control the things I can, and the things I can't, I just don't dwell on it. There was a book years ago called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff by Richard Carlson, who has since passed on. And I so believe in that philosophy of life. So I think that there are so many good things that are going on in the world and the people that live in this country and on the planet, that I don't just get discouraged about it.
But I know also in some of the research that you worry. You worry about things that you see out there. Are there issues that really concern you about what we face as a nation, what we face as a society?
Mm-hmm. I'm worried that we're so mean and snarky to each other and that it's now becoming the accepted norm. I really think we're in a bad path. I worry about young kids becoming engaged in sex at a very, very early age when they don't even know what they're doing. I worry about that. I worry that And I'm not some Pollyanna person. I've done some stuff that you go, God, I wish I wouldn't have done that. But I mean, I don't like the disrespect that a lot of people show to each other and to themselves. Mm-hmm. That bothers me. And
it's along the same lines from the audience, what has been your greatest challenge in life, and have you turned it into an opportunity?
My greatest challenge.
Learning how to tweet.
Yeah. I know, I'm so I got to get better on this. My BlackBerry went down yesterday, and you would have thought that, that the world had fallen apart. And I'm calling Kirby saying, now I have a laptop, so now how exactly do you get this on? Because I'm so used to my BlackBerry and my laptop at work. Mm-hmm. And she said, well, you have to go with your password. I go, what's my password? Because I so seldom use it there. So, I mean, that's something that I got to get a little better on.
But in terms of challenges, did you ever find yourself in a situation where you felt you were being discriminated because of
my race or my gender?
Those were the two.
I've never felt that so much. When I grew up in Turkey, and I was really, in a class where maybe there were one or two other black kids in the class. And I can remember Wayne Biasetti at a very early age in 6th grade traumatized me for life, saying, if we hadn't had President Lincoln, you would have been my slave. And I remember going home to my mother and saying,
that's harsh.
Yeah. Oh, I still remember him.
Right.
And I remember going to my mother saying, what exactly does that mean? But I didn't really have, I grew up in a predominantly white community and didn't feel discriminated against, or really didn't feel all that different than any of the other kids. And I still don't.
Well, a question from the audience, somewhat along the same lines. Gayle, as the editor of Oprah Magazine, you know what a big deal it is to have a woman of color on the cover of every issue.
Yeah.
How do you feel about
How
do you feel about the impact that Oprah and you have had on the world's more important women's perception of themselves and their unique beauty?
Well, I feel really good about that. I feel really good that people can look at Oprah and they can look at me and say, one day I want to be like you. Young girls have said that to me, and I always stop them and say, nope, you don't want to be like me. You want to be better than me, because there really is only one me. There really is only one Oprah. You have to figure out what you can do in your own life to parlay whatever you think this is that works for you. But for sure, it's quite a compliment.
A question which relates back to something we were just talking about is the public nature of your life. How does the invasion of the media into the private lives of famous figures like yourself have an impact, and is there anything that you can do about it?
Well, I think it's getting worse, Jonathan, because the paparazzi is so out of control. And they're getting more and more invasive. They're getting more and more, where they're actually endangering their lives and endangering the lives of other people just to get a shot. I'm really lucky in that I can move pretty freely. Will summed it up best. Will, my son, summed it up best once when he said, I would never want you to be as famous as Auntie O. That's what she's known in our house. Because whenever you go out with her, it really is like being in a parade. It's always lights, camera, action. He said, I really like what you have. He said, kind of rich and kind of famous. So you still get to go to all of the things. You still get the perks that come along with whatever people think this is.
You get to be headlines in National Enquirer.
Yeah, you get to be headlines in National Enquirer. The day I wore Oprah's panties. Yeah.
Right.
So you get, there's no question you get perks of, getting to go to things, traveling places you wouldn't normally get to go to, getting tickets early for things. There's no question about that. So my life I think it just sort of comes with the territory. And if you don't want to be approached in public, then you should just stay home. It always bothers me when I see celebrities who are out, and I don't put myself in that category, who are covering their heads or say I don't want to talk to you, because to me it's such a small thing to be nice to somebody. For most people, it's the first and last time they're going to see you. It's the first and last time they're going to see you, and whatever that encounter is that they have with you is something that is going to last a lifetime. And I don't want to be the person that they said, oh, I met her and she was such a bitch, or I met her and I thought that she's not who I thought she was. I'm always very cognizant of that. But people can sometimes catch you in a bad mood, and you can say, look, I'm really sorry, but I just can't, or I can't. I never refuse to sign, but sometimes you'll have a conversation that's going on just a beat too long, And I'll go, I'm really sorry, I really gotta go.
Well,
So nice to meet you, Mr. Tisch, but I really gotta go. Right. You know how you have that tendency to drone on and on.
The first time we met, you didn't say that to me.
No,
absolutely not.
No.
Education is obviously something that's important to Oprah and yourself. Oprah started the Leadership Academy
in South Africa,
in South Africa, and you've been very involved with that. And it sort of relates to one question from the audience. Now that parents don't have the same resources, financial, that they used to, what is your view on high school graduates going to college or not? And do you think that mentoring can fill the void?
I still think it is so important to go to college. I think even if you think you're not going to use it, I think the social skills that come with going away, and my preference too is to go away to school if you can, to live in a dormitory, it really is the first time when you go away to college, for most people, is the first time that you've been away from your family, where you really have to make adult decisions. There's nobody telling you got to get up and go to class, what class are you taking, what did you do last night, where are you going this weekend? You really have to become very self-sufficient very, very quickly. So I just think the college experience in itself is very important. And that thing that knowledge is power is not a cliche. It's really very true. I interviewed Jesse Jackson years ago when I was a cub reporter in Kansas City, and he said something that I've never forgotten, that he said, excellence is the best deterrent to racism. And I think that that's very true. And you always notice somebody. I used to go to the mall. I lived in Connecticut, and there's a mall there in Stamford, Connecticut, and I would get pretzels. I love those pretzels, Annie's pretzels. I would go to pretzel time, and this guy was always in such a great mood, always. And it wasn't that he recognized me or that he knew me, because a lot of times I'm moving around without hair and makeup. I'm just looking, like I was someplace and somebody said, "You're Gayle King, aren't you? I recognize your voice." "Yeah, I am." "Are you in disguise?" I go, "It is my face. It is my face." So I'm not saying, I did not laugh. I did not laugh. I've had, "Are you in disguise?" or, "Oh, are you not feeling well? Are you okay?" No, this is really my face. No, I'm okay. But so it's not like the guy recognized me. It's just that he had such a bubbly personality. Everybody that came out, "What would you like? How many would you like? Are you sure you want that?" And so one day I watched him. I stood aside just to watch him. And I went up to him and I said, "God, I've been to your place several times. And no matter when I come, you were always like this. How is that possible?" And he goes, "'Cause I just like what I do. I like to make people happy." I mean, so you notice people, whether it's a good plumber, whether it's a good doorman, whether it's a good teacher, people who are good at what they do, you notice them. And I think that comes with being educated and loving what you do.
In a recent issue of the magazine, you asked some of your editors to answer a few questions. And I'm going to turn the tide a little bit, or turn the tables and ask you the questions. My greatest adventure has been...
Gosh, I would say the road trip that Oprah and I did. But I'm not going to say that. I mean, I marvel that people years later still talk about that. I would say going to Africa, and Oprah did a thing, Christmas Kindness in 2000, where she really mobilized taking Christmas presents to these kids in these remote areas in Africa. That was something, and we all got to go, me, Kirby, and Will, and she took like 80 people with her. And then hired people in Africa too to distribute toys to kids in Africa. I'll never forget that trip. And we got to do that, and then we ended, all of that. We did that for maybe 3 to 4 weeks, and then she took us all on safari. That was an adventure. Where you get to see the big five with the elephant, the tigers, the lions, the rhinoceroses, where you get to see them up close and personal. I came back thinking, zoos are cruel. It's really cruel what they do to animals in zoos. I mean, that was probably my best adventure.
Another question that you've asked your editors, the one thing I hope to discover is?
That I hope to discover. I would say the cure for cancer, but I know I can't do that. How to be better organized. I'm so disorganized. I did a thing the other day where I put my contact lens solution, and maybe this is just a thing of getting old, in a cabinet where it never goes. I thought I was putting, a medication there, and I was looking all over for my contact lens solution, or I ran my bath water recently and did not remember running it. You know, I'm thinking, I'm now getting to the stage, and I know it's not early Alzheimer's. They said, Gayle, you would worry if you didn't know what water was or the tub was, but as long as you know what that is, you're okay. But I now find that I have to write a to-do list down and to figure out, to try to keep track of things. I've never been an organized person. I would like to learn how to do that.
Last question from the magazine that you asked your editors. If I could go anywhere, it would be?
Because I've been a lot of places, but I've never been to Asia. I would love to go to, you know, China or Hong Kong. I hear Shanghai is very cool. I've never been to Asia. And I would like to see the pyramids of Egypt, too.
You just had an offer of somebody that wants to go with you.
Seriously. Yeah. I would like to go. I would really like to go. I've never been there. I think travel is so good for young people in particular. I think it's good to be exposed to different cultures, to be exposed to different ways of life. You know, I learned that most people in this country don't have a passport because most people don't travel. So to have the ability to travel, I think, has been a huge, huge gift. You know, it started for me when I was a little kid, but I think it's great to be able, if you ever get the opportunity to travel, I think it's so important to grab that.
Last year I had a chance to interview Chris Matthews, and I ended my interview with him by asking him the question that he asks everybody, which is, tell me something.
Tell me something,
Tell me something I don't know. And so I think it's only appropriate that I end the interview with Gayle tonight, and I think we need to thank Gayle, because she has been...
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for your candor and for your openness and really enlightening all of us.
Thank you, Jonathan. You're very smooth with your questions, I must say.
Thank you.
You know, when I met Jonathan, I thought maybe he's a little buttoned up because he's a Tisch, but you're not. You're not at all. No, but I've known that for a while. It's not like I'm just discovering this.
Is that like a brand? Is that?
Yeah. No, well, you know, you think, you know, people of your stature are a little buttoned up, a little serious. I mean, and you can be that when you need to be, but I mean, you're just really delightful.
Well, you mentioned all the opportunities that you have, and that's what I love about what I'm doing, is that I can run a public company and do a TV show and write books and interview people like Gayle King.
Thanks.
But the final question, which I think is an appropriate way to end this discussion, which has been truly, truly wonderful. What is the one thing that you know for sure?
That's what we do in our magazine.
I know. That's why I'm asking you.
The one thing that I know for sure, they will figure out a way to cap this oil spill. As we're in day 45.
Please.
Can you believe we're in day 45?
Yeah.
They will figure out a way to straighten this out. That's another heartbreaking story to me, but they will it's mind-boggling and maddening to me that they haven't figured it out yet, but they will.
I agree, and I hope it's sooner rather than later.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Gayle, thank you. This has been so enjoyable.
Thank you
to the audience.
Thank you, audience.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.